I'll talk very briefly about the importance of this day, not only in the context of Odisha, but in the wider national and international context, and the kinds of things that we should keep in mind whenever we celebrate linguistic identity. I think in 1936 something very important happened in a backwater like Odisha. Odisha was a colonial backwater, an outpost of the empire, not very important. It was actually a punishment post for the British civil servants. So ordinarily we wouldn't expect anything great happening here, but something truly great happened in 1936. That was the formation of a state on the basis of language. Only two states in provinces, they were not states, two provinces in pre-independence India were formed on the basis of language. One was Sindh, which is now part of Pakistan, and Odisha, which, as I already mentioned, was a backwater. Nothing very important happened here in 1866. 1/3 of its population perished on account of a terrible famine, so it was a very backward place. So something very important happened. That linguistic identity, a language, became the basis of the identity of a province. And this was something very important, especially in the 19th century. The idea of language as the source of identity. It happened in Europe. Most nations in Europe, after the disintegration of Austro-Hungarian Empire and all the other empires, now were formed on the basis of language. France on the basis of French, Italy on the basis of Italian, Germany on the basis of German as a language. So the link between language and identity came to be reinforced and established during the 19th century. And language became a much more important marker of identity than religion. As you have already noticed, in 1971, Pakistan was formed on the basis of religion. And then within 24 years, Bangladesh seceded from Pakistan and became another independent sovereign nation on the basis of language, proving thereby that language is far more powerful an emotion or source of identity than religion or anything else. In 1904 in Finland, it was at that time had been subjugated by the Russians. So the Russian governor tried to impose Russian on Finland, and he was assassinated 1904. So historically, language has always been a source of identity, particularly since the 19th century. All nations in the world, most of them are based on language. Very few exceptions. Canada and Switzerland, otherwise most nations are based on language. So Odisha in that way showed the way. And after independence, when people thought of, the authorities, the architects of modern India thought of reorganizing India along administrative or other lines, they had to follow this example. Language became the basis on which different states, no longer provinces. Provinces are part of colonies. In a republic, you have states. The word province comes from being vanquished. If you are vanquished, then you are called a province. In a republic, you have states. So states were formed on the basis of language. And as you know, somebody fasted unto death, Pottavi Sitaramalu or somebody in Andhra Pradesh, so that Andhra could secede from Madras presidency. So language, Assam on the basis of Assamese, Andhra Pradesh on the basis of Telugu. So this is a very important experiment that was conducted in a place like Odisha, which later gave the independent nation an idea about reorganizing the state or reorganizing the country along linguistic identities or linguistic lines. Now I'll try to sum up very quickly and won't stand between you and your entertainment program. So it's all very well to think of language as the basis of the identity of a province or a state or a nation. This has also some problems. In 1943, a university was set up in Odisha, the first university in Odisha was set up in 1943, Utkal University, in the midst of the Second World War. This again was a tremendous achievement. Think of the Second World War. The whole world was in flames. And in the middle of all that, Odisha could get a university established. And in the first convocation, the then governor of Odisha, Sir Hawthorne Lewis, said something very important which we should always bear in mind. He congratulated Odias for getting a state on the basis of their language. But then he also pointed out very wisely, all identity politics narrows one's mind. Linguistic identity, religious identity, ethnic identity, whatever, any polity based on identity, be it language, be it religion, be it ethnicity, narrows one's mind, and it contains within itself the germ of hostility to other languages. So this is a burden that we carry. Whenever a state is formed on the basis of language or any other identity, we have to keep ourselves constantly aware of the danger of trying to dominate or erase other languages. So this is something that we should keep in mind. He warned us that in 1943, you should be aware of the fact, now that you have got your state on the basis of your own language, you should be very tolerant, you should be very responsive to other languages, because no language no culture can grow, can flourish, can nourish itself unless it keeps learning from other languages. And so he was prophetic, because in 1948, 5 years later, 26 Gojats were merged with Odisha, and in all these feudatory states of Gojats, the language that most of the people who lived there, which they spoke, was not Odia. They were tribals. So Odia was not their mother tongue. So we keep forgetting that we have among us people who do not speak our language. So this kind of tolerance is extremely essential, important, if our languages need to grow. So it's a great thing that we got a state founded on the basis of our linguistic identity, and we enriched our language. We transformed it into an instrument of acquisition of knowledge. We expressed ourselves in creative ways through that language and established that language as one of the great languages of the country and the world. But at the same time, we have to constantly negotiate our relationship with other languages. English grew because it continued to assimilate and absorb elements from other languages. We should also keep that in mind. If our language would grow, or we would like our language to grow, flourish, prosper, we can only do so if we keep learning from, assimilating wonderful elements from other languages. So this is extremely important on a very important day like this, that linguistic identity can also lead to a limited and limiting perspective on culture. So while celebrating our great achievement in forming the first state or province in India on the basis of linguistic identity, we should also keep ourselves constantly reminded of our great responsibility to make our language grow through tolerance and through responsiveness. I'll just conclude by saying one thing. All of us now think of language in wherever you go, whenever language is being taught in schools, colleges, we always talk of language as a tool of communication. What does language do? We communicate. But language is much more than a means of communication. Language is also inheritance. Language embodies culture. Language embodies worldviews. Language embodies whole ways of looking at the world. So, by emphasizing the role of language as a tool of communication, we impoverish it. We diminish its possibilities. So, we can again help our language prosper, take its rightful place in the Republic of Letters by reminding ourselves constantly its importance as a precious, invaluable inheritance. Thank you very much for your patience.